All right, take a look at this. It's a fake US $100 bill made in Peru. But, this isn't just any old counterfeit. This is a work of criminal genius. A bill so perfect it could fool, well, just about anyone. So, how on earth did they pull it off?
And look, when I say it fooled almost anyone, I'm not kidding. This thing sailed through every single layer of security designed to stop it. We're talking ATMs, bank tellers, even the super high-tech scanners at the Federal Reserve. This wasn't just a good fake, it was what investigators call a super note. Just think about that for a second. It beat the machines at the ATM. Then it got past the sophisticated scanners at commercial banks. And then, for the final boss, it slipped right by the most rigorous inspection of all at the Fed itself. It passed every single test. Which brings us to the million-dollar question, or maybe the $80 million question, the one that had the Secret Service scratching their heads for years. In a world of high-tech security features, how did a criminal network in Lima, Peru, create a counterfeit that was, for all intents and purposes, perfect? Well, it all starts with the single biggest headache for any counterfeiter, the paper. Or, more accurately, the fabric. See, getting this right is the absolute foundation of any convincing fake, and this is where our story takes its first really brilliant turn. So here's the thing you gotta understand. The money in your wallet, it isn't actually paper. It's a very specific blend of cotton and linen. It has this distinct fabric-like feel. It's durable. Regular old paper made from wood pulp just feels wrong. It's smooth, it's flimsy, and it's why most fakes fail the second you touch them. So how do you get the perfect paper? The answer is ingenious. You don't try to make it, you buy it. When Venezuela's economy collapsed, their currency, the bolivar, became pretty much worthless. But, and this is the key, it was printed on the exact same cotton-linen blend as US dollars. The criminals realized they could buy up mountains of real currency paper for pennies on the dollar, creating the perfect blank canvas. But getting the paper was just step one. Now they had to erase the old currency without destroying that precious canvas. And this required a ridiculously precise, almost scientific process. We're talking a specific chemical bath, an exact 11-minute window. Any shorter, a ghost image remained, any longer, and the whole thing would just disintegrate. Then came multiple rinses at exactly 72 degrees, and a final pressing to get that perfect thickness and the crisp snap of a brand new bill. So with a perfect blank canvas in hand, the counterfeiters now had to become artists. They were facing a whole new set of challenges to turn this blank fabric into an undetectable $100 bill. Okay, problem number one, texture. Real US money is printed using something called an intaglio press. It's a multi-million-dollar machine that uses 20 tons of pressure to force ink into the paper. It creates these raised, textured ridges your fingers just know are right. The counterfeiters? They only had standard offset presses, the kind that print magazines. All that does is lay flat, smooth ink on the surface. The bill just felt wrong. Their solution was absolutely stunning. It wasn't some million-dollar machine. It was a simple recipe you could whip up in a kitchen. A little flour, some carpenter's glue, and water. Mixed in just the right proportions, this simple paste could perfectly mimic the feel of that 20-ton press. And this is where the incredible artistry comes in. This couldn't be done by a machine. Workers, by hand, would dip their fingertips into this mixture and delicately apply it to key parts of the bill, like the collar of Benjamin Franklin's jacket. It was this manual human touch that added subtle, random imperfections, which ironically made the fakes feel even more real. All right, on to the next hurdle. And this was supposed to be the deal breaker, the security thread. In a real 100, this little plastic strip is woven directly into the fabric as the paper is being made. The conventional wisdom was that adding one after the fact was just completely impossible. But, of course, they found a way. It was like performing microscopic surgery on a banknote. They'd soften the bills in water for exactly 4 minutes. Then, using surgical needles, the tiny kind used for eye operations, they would painstakingly thread their own homemade security strips right through the fabric. As the bill dried, the cotton fibers would tighten around the thread, locking it in so perfectly that even the Secret Service labs couldn't spot the difference. Now, this level of craftsmanship, from the texture to the thread, this wasn't just a one-off experiment in somebody's garage. These criminal organizations scaled this kitchen craft into a full-blown industrial empire, an operation big enough to rival a national mint. A huge key to their success was a ruthless obsession with quality. They knew that just one bad bill getting traced back to them could bring the whole thing crashing down. So for every 10 bills they made, they destroyed 9. Only the absolute best, the most perfect fakes, just 1 in 10, ever made it out the door. And even with that insane rejection rate, the scale was just staggering. Authorities estimated that with over 50 of these operations running across the city, Lima was flooding the United States with $80 million in near-perfect counterfeit currency every single year. But every empire has a weakness. For all their perfection, for all their artistry and incredible precision, this entire operation was ultimately brought down by a single, repeating, microscopic mistake, a flaw they never even knew was there. You know how every old typewriter has its own little quirks and unique flaws? Well, it turns out printing presses do too. And Secret Service investigators, using powerful electron microscopes, finally found their smoking gun. A minuscule gap, just 0.03 of a millimeter wide, right next to Franklin's left eye. A tiny, unique fingerprint left by their press. This tiny finger point was the key that unlocked everything. Suddenly, a bill seized in Miami had it. Another one in Los Angeles had it. One in New York. They were all from the same press. And when the DEA busted a drug shipment from Lima and found bills with that exact same flaw, they had their source. That kicked off 18 months of intense surveillance that mapped out the entire network. All of this work culminated in a massive, coordinated takedown called Operation Sunset, and it was a huge success. But as the agents would soon discover, cutting the head off this snake wasn't going to be enough to kill it. The scale of the raid was immense. We're talking 1,500 Peruvian police officers hitting 54 locations at the exact same moment. They made 48 arrests, they seized over 30 million in fake US dollars and 50,000 in fake euros. By all accounts, it was the largest counterfeit seizure in Secret Service history. But amidst all the printing presses and stacks of cash, they found something far more important: a simple child's notebook. And inside were the handwritten formulas for everything. The exact bleaching times, the glue recipe, the angles for the thread insertion. They hadn't just shut down a factory, they had found the cookbook. And that's the real problem, isn't it? The notebook they seized was just one copy. The knowledge, the recipe, had already spread throughout Lima, passed around like a family secret. And because of that, despite that massive historic raid, Peru still produces an estimated 60% of the world's counterfeit US currency today. Which leaves us with a final, kind of fascinating question. That $100 bill you might get from an ATM, if it passes every test, if it buys your groceries and pays your rent, and the only difference is that someone in a Lima workshop spent 10 minutes hand-threading a security strip through it, does it really matter?